Hello, everyone. Welcome to an exciting new journey. The challenges that immigrants go through, no one understands them fully. I realized a little while ago that my son would never understand what we truly went through. So, I want to do something to chronicle the different paths we take. We're going to be talking to different people from different cultures, and the only thing they have in common is that they've left their homelands to work in the NHS. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the IMG UK podcast. I've got a very special guest here today with me, someone I actually became friends with on Twitter, which is just a testament to how great social media is these days. So I've got Dr. Usama Basit with me, who is an emergency medicine registrar, currently doing a fellowship in pediatric emergency medicine in the north of England. I think originally he's based in the south of England, like me. So he's Team South. And we'll be talking about his story today. Sam is originally from Islamabad, and I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience.
So hi guys, thank you Asad for giving me this opportunity. Really excited to be here. Just to clarify. Yes, I'm from Islamabad, which essentially means that my parents used to live in Islamabad, but no one actually belongs to Islamabad. Everyone sort of migrated into Islamabad from somewhere. So my dad's from Karachi, my mom's from Lahore, and my dad was in the forces. And so we once he retired, we sort of did a compromise and said we'd stay somewhere in the middle where it's a bit safe. Sorry.
You from the previous episodes, everyone sort of knows I've got a few questions that I normally ask people. I think before we talk about those questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about when you came to the UK, how long you've been here?
So I came to the UK in December 2014, which seems like a very long time ago now. But it's essentially been just under 7 years. And I graduated from medical school back in Pakistan in 2007. So I'm a really, really old person, essentially. My journey to the UK has been quite convoluted. And it's essentially, everyone keeps telling me it's the destination doesn't matter, it's the journey that matters, which is all fine unless you are on the journey. We came to the UK in December 2014. Initially settled in Northampton as my first port of call, and got into an emergency medicine training post in Ipswich in 2016, and have been in Ipswich for the past 5 years. And just recently, a couple of months ago, I moved to Manchester to do my fellowship in Penn.
I think that's something we share in common, because I spent 4 or 5 years at the same trust as well. I don't have nearly as much experience as you, but I think staying at the same place for
call me old. It doesn't. You don't have to be nearly as much experience. I know what you mean. Yes, I'm old.
No, but staying in the same place, you get to develop all these amazing relationships, and literally, even now when I go back, because I'm very fortunate, because my new job, I still go back and see the same people one day a week, because I do clinics. Because as an oncology doctor, and it's just amazing, because you have all these relationships and people respect you, they know you, and I think it's very hard to build that again when you move, which probably you're experiencing right now.
I completely agree. There is, however, it is a bit of a two-edged a sword. There are two sides of this. So one is definitely, I agree, and I prefer that if you stay in the same place, you get to know everyone, and by everyone, it's not just your department. You know where the nearest canteen with the hot food is. You know where the nearest toilet is for when the ones in your department are full. You also know everyone. So if you wanted to call the ITU doctor, that's someone who you've rotated with when you did your ITU rotation. The pediatric registrar that you asked for advice was once a pediatric SHO when you were rotating in peds. So that sort of thing. And some of the interesting bits were that the registrars that you initially worked with 5 years ago are now consultants sort of either in your specialty or in other specialties. So that sort of rapport is really good. But the other side of the coin is that once you start as a very baby junior doctor, it's very difficult for them to see you as anything else, because you've just been there for the past 5 years. Yes, you've been progressing, but to them, it's the same. It's sort of like my baby sister, my younger sister, is 8 years younger than me. So when I was 15, she was significantly younger. But when I am 36 now, she is a full-grown adult. But I will always treat her as my baby sister. So that sort of thing I've had to. I found it a bit difficult that people then sort of have difficulty seeing you in that sort of leadership role that you feel that you've earned, but they cannot go beyond your, oh, you just started here, didn't you, as a baby? I've seen you making your first mistakes. So that's a bit difficult sometimes as well.
I completely agree with you, and I remember feeling something similar. And I think apart from that, it's not just the fact that people see you in a certain light. It's also that, you become very comfortable, and sometimes that comfort is actually an antidote to progress. And if you don't break through, it's very difficult to change and continue improving.
You don't really know what you lack, because you've become comfortable, and everyone around you is comfortable with your whatever you're doing. And so once you come out of your comfort zone is when you actually have to push yourself and to improve. Otherwise, you stay where you are. It becomes a bit stagnant after a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I still absolutely love working at the place I used to be. I have a lot of time for everyone over there, but it came to a point where everyone was like, "Oh, Asad's seen this patient," and I said, "No, don't say that. Criticize me. Actually, look for you can't accept what I'm doing. I mean, it's good. It's nice to have that trust, but also it's a bit it would be nice to have someone question you and allow you to continue improving and keep teaching."
Because you're still in training, you've not reached the destination yet.
Absolutely.
So you still want to continue to improve.
So let's get started with things. The first question is, why did you decide to move?
So I feel like all of these questions, my first answer is going to be that's a very loaded question, because there's no easy way, no direct one answer. But I feel like in medical school, it wasn't really a decision. It was more of you were sort of encouraged to sort of go for sort of higher postgraduate foreign degrees. So as you did, my medical school was in Pakistan. And so a lot of my seniors, a lot of my colleagues were already thinking about it, going to America, for the US for their residency. I used to fancy myself a surgical career at one point in my...
That makes two of us.
Yeah. I think the coolness factor of it and it just appealed to me, and Grey's Anatomy had just begun and all of those things. You probably weren't even born then. Essentially. So why did I decide? So it wasn't so much of a decision as this is the next phase of our medical career that you sort of have to, not have to, but sort of it's encouraged. But the UK was not my first destination, I must admit. It wasn't my first choice. I had a couple of friends who did come give their PLAB directly after medical school, and then they came here. I feel like they made the right decision. I chose the USMLE pathway, and if you remember, I mentioned the convoluted journey. So I tried a couple of times. I did not match into a US residency. and then I my world came crashing down for a bit. Went back to Pakistan. I did my what's it's called the house job, which is essentially your 2 years of foundation year just condensed into the 1 year. I did that 2 or 3 years after I graduated from medical school, and from there, in my last rotation during my house job, I began to work in an emergency medicine department, and I realized it ticks a lot of my boxes for surgery, and with no ward rounds, which is perfect.
Do you have any regrets, or do you think this was divine intervention to lead you on your path?
So, 10 years ago, 26-year-old me, if you'd asked me that question, yes, the regret would have been, oh my goodness, I didn't get into residency. Oh my goodness, my life is a failure. What am I doing? It's taken me this long. My friends, my class fellows already were consultants 5-10 years ago. I'm still in training. But I am 36-year-old me is quite content. At least we're making progress. We are happy. We are healthy. We are headed towards something that we want. I have made something of myself by working hard at it. I have failed a few times, but it's essentially the whole journey has made me into the person I am today. So I do not have any regrets, because I would not be here right now talking to you on this podcast, I believe, if I had not gone through all of that.
And that's the entire point, because I'm very much like you. I am not a journey person. When my brother and I used to be on a plane when we were little, he was always the type of person who would enjoy the journey, and I'd always be the one like shutting my eyes, just trying to go to sleep and thinking just get there, because the enjoyment can start. But you're absolutely right, because this is very different. This is you pick up certain skills along the way, you change yourself along the way, and having this time to actually discover what you wanted. For example, I mean, I've told you this, I wanted to be a surgeon, and I've gone from surgery to medicine to exploring multiple medical specialties to finally settling on something I truly enjoy, which is clinical oncology. There'll be time to talk about my journey some other day. But I think that I was quite fortunate in that regard, and I think that's probably one of the things that you're trying to touch on, which is very important. So there's many people who are going to be listening to this, and it's important to learn from your mistakes. It's important to be able to make those mistakes in a safe manner.
I absolutely agree, and I think the one thing that I feel that we should work more towards in Pakistan is to encourage people and to get them to explore options. So, like me, I was sort of sent into this world where if you don't do your USMLEs, if you don't do the US residency, then you're a failure. And that's why my world came shattering down, because I had no plan B. Whereas had I explored things a bit further, I didn't. The only reason I discovered emergency medicine was because I failed at getting a surgical residency, came back to Pakistan, and there was a job in emergency medicine. I would probably not have chosen emergency medicine as a specialty for myself had I not been made to dip my toe into it, and found that I was actually good at it and I liked it, and they liked me. So I think we are we do not want to make mistakes, which is understandable. But without making mistakes, you can't get it right you can't get everything right the first time. So you have to allow yourself to be that much human if you have a passion and if your way ahead is clear, that's fine, you go for it. But if your way ahead is not clear, or you should have a plan B, I feel, always. If this doesn't work out, what will my life be like? And sort of prepare yourself for potentially worst case scenario. Yes, I am a pessimist, but I feel like you need to not just be, oh, I'll do this, I'll give it my 100%, and that's it. You need to be able to recover from making a mistake, and
Yeah, because nothing ever goes according to plan. You just revise and improvise. Um, Tell us a little bit about your lovely family.
So my immediate family is so my wife and I came here. We were when we came to the UK, we were expecting our first child, which is very. It's already nerve wracking anyway, coming into a new culture, new situation. Um, and we've got two sons, one's 6 and one's 2. We've tried to just now put them to sleep before this podcast starts. So you might hear some crying in the background. That might just be my wife who's trying to put them to sleep. And or you might hear some screaming, and they often like to join in as well when I'm on an official Zoom meeting. It's just like if Baba is at home, then we need to be climbing all over him. So that's my immediate family. I belong to a family who's settled, as we say, in Islamabad. My dad is a retired Pakistan Air Force officer. He's an aeronautical engineer. My mom's a housewife. My wife also is a homemaker. And I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. We're both married.
Fantastic. So, this is very similar to what we were just talking about. Let's combine two questions into one. And so let's talk about this sequentially. So, what do you miss the most about your hometown? And tell us a little bit about your hometown. And also, because, you came and you were expecting your first child. How was your first day, your first week, your first month?
Okay, so the first part of that question is about my hometown. So Islamabad, Rawalpindi, sort of twin cities. Is it the place, or is it the people, or is it the memories of both? It's a bit. So the hometown itself holds importance to you because of your childhood. I think your friend Mujtaba on your previous podcast episode touched a bit on this as well. You find yourself wanting to go back to that nostalgia, that all of those feelings that were from those carefree days, which may or may not exist now. So the thing I miss most about my hometown is obviously my family is there. My parents are there. My brother and sister are married, living in different parts of the world. What do I miss most about it, aside from the obvious family, is so everyone knows everyone in Islamabad. Islamabad is like this teeny tiny area where so I did my medical school there. I did the early medical career there. Your seniors in school, your juniors, your class fellows, and then the people you work with and their brothers and sisters, that you know everyone. And then my dad was in the Air Force, so then that brings a whole new level of connections. So and I'm very, very social. So my wife isn't as social as I am. So she's from Karachi. And so when we got married and she moved to Islamabad, she was like, even if we were going out for groceries, she used to get properly ready. I was like, why are you getting ready? Because she's like, I know for a fact that you are going to meet someone that we are going to meet someone that you know there. And I'm like, no, let's just, for example, once when this was the day after our wedding actually, or I think this was a wedding function day, I don't know. Anyway, we were like in our full wedding attire or like really decked up, and after the dinner or whatever, we said we'd go out for coffee, and she was like, I need to change. And I was like, it's fine, it's 11:30 at night, no one's going to be there. And she didn't know what she was getting into. And we went for coffee and like we met, like I'm not exaggerating, like 30 people not together, but 30 different people from different parts of my background. And she was, and they all wanted a picture with the bride and the groom. And she was like, I am now in everyone's, and they're going to think that I go for coffee wearing all these decked up clothes in Islamabad. So that's the thing I miss most about Islamabad. Like, you could not go anywhere without running into someone you knew. And it's just, I just miss that quite a bit. Like, you know everyone, from your barber to the person who fills up your fuel. Yes, in Pakistan, someone fills the fuel up in your petrol tank. To the person who serves you your coffee. You just know everyone. Everyone's chacha or mamu or someone you know. Bhai.
You do know that this is going to be on, social media, YouTube. You do know your wife is going to watch this, right? You know that.
I know. So yeah, cause of death on the death certificate, you all know.
What about the second part of the question?
What was the second part again?
How was your first day, your first week, your first month?
Here in the UK, first day, first week. It was, so everyone's first day anywhere new is overwhelming. I think it's nervous, it's exciting. For me, it was a bit not scary, but very intimidating in a way, because I was leaving my so my wife was expecting a baby. We didn't have any internet at home at the time. She didn't have a television. She had nothing to occupy herself with except for just the unpacking bits and the cleaning of the apartment. I was a bit scared of leaving her alone, if she needed anything, what was going to happen, if I couldn't pick up the phone, etc., those sorts of things. Her phone did have internet, but unfortunately, the apartment building that we lived in did not carry signals for that particular service provider. But anyway, so that was a main concern. And then very overwhelming, because people don't really realize this. Everyone who comes in probably feels this. It's not just a cultural shock. The medical bit of stuff. And that's, I think, the easy bit. The difficult bit is the cultural bit, what is expected. There's a password for all different to request an X-ray. There's a different system to look at the X-ray. There is a smart card. I used to carry in my phone notepad. I used to carry all those passwords because I couldn't remember what to do. And every time you ask a question, you feel like you should know this because you've had induction and orientation. So I just felt like a sad little puppy that was just following people around. And yes, there was this period of shadowing, a 2-week period. But let me remind you, I came in December 2014. So December in emergency medicine is peak emergency medicine timing, the winter pressures. So people they were lovely, but they didn't really have time for a complete novice in the UK to hold their hand. I couldn't do bloods. I really couldn't do anything, essentially. I had to be shown everything. I didn't know what a bladder scanner was. I didn't know that you could do that. In Pakistan, you just felt the
clinical examination in that
area, and there was a mask, and then you based on clinical picture. But over here, you had a bladder scanner, and someone said, "Have you scanned the bladder?" And I was like, "What? I do not know what you mean." So yeah. People were very helpful, very lovely, amazing people. And a testament to that is that department has a lot of international medical graduates and foreign doctors coming in and staying and wanting to stay. And they really, really sort of encouraged my love for emergency medicine. And they, I'm in emergency medicine training because of them. I got in the next year. So yeah, it was very overwhelming, but it was quite worth it. It's still overwhelming. That feeling sometimes doesn't. A little bit of that feeling doesn't go away. But yeah, that was my first day, I think.
it's the same imposter syndrome that we've discussed before, isn't it? It just, it's always there. Even when you're a consultant, it's always there, but you just learn to deal with it in different ways, I guess.
Agreed. That's what they keep telling me. I'm waiting for them to tap me on the shoulder and say, you know what, your imposter syndrome, that's a bit of that is true.
Well, I'll ask you very soon because you're almost there now, aren't you? Right. So, okay. Again, gonna join two questions into one. This is one of those interviews. What has been your biggest challenge, and what has been the biggest learning point? What have you learned the most after moving to a new place?
So the biggest challenge is, I don't know what people answer for this. I think there's many different challenges that we faced. I think we were newly married when we first came here. I think we'd been married a year, and that you're just discovering new things about your own relationship, and throw up your first baby into that mix as well. That's, everyone's nervous. There's hormones. There's everything's going around.
No sleep.
Yes, and then even if you are in a familiar environment, that's a challenging situation. But to navigate a completely a journey across from Pakistan, to saying goodbye to your loved ones, coming to the UK, finding your first place to live with together, that was, I think, the challenging bit for us, just navigating everything together. I honestly recommend people to, I think first one person might come in and sort of get grounded, get set a bit, and then the second person joins them, because we were both sort of like discovering things at the same time. What do we do for groceries? We didn't know that stuff closed at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Sunday was my day off,
because that's not how it works in Pakistan.
As you said,
11:30 p.m. is, things are like normal, everything's open.
Yeah. And there's like I said, we go out for coffee at 11:30 p.m. And in Islamabad, which is somewhat of a slightly deader city than Lahore or Karachi, but it was very difficult to navigate those things. Aside from that, I think the various challenges of moving to a new place with a completely different culture, the way to raise your kids is different. The way to discipline your kids is different. Schooling is a completely different thing. So it's just everything requires an appointment. So I have to first look at, if I have to, for example, let's say I want to get my radiator fixed, for example, I have to first ring them up, have my rota in front of me. They have to then come in to review the situation on one of my days off, and they will then give me a quote. And then, should I want to proceed, I then give them another day off where they come in and do the stuff, hopefully, if they're able to do it. So those sorts of things in Pakistan, you just say, can you come in and do this?
Call Chacha.
You do this in 2
Chacha,
hours.
can you come and fix this?
Yeah. No, I can't do this tonight. I'll come tomorrow. No, I'll give you 500 rupees extra today. Do it today. And it's easier. And I'll drop you off as well, and you can have food as well.
It's the beauty of capitalism, my friend.
Those are the things that are difficult. And my wife and I, like I said, so my wife is also an Air Force brat. Essentially, my father-in-law was also in the Air Force. That's how this situation happened. And so we were a bit pampered, and my wife hadn't actually lived too much on her own independently. And so to do all your groceries and just, while she's pregnant, coming back with huge shopping bags full of a week's worth of groceries. Those things were a bit challenging, where in Pakistan, when you're expecting a baby, you're like, you sit here and we'll get everyone else to do everything.
Bows to you.
Yes. So I often came home from work, and not often, but sometimes I mean, I came home from work every day, but I sometimes kind of, I mean, like I always came home, I promise.
What are you trying to say? This is not
Uh,
that kind of podcast.
so I come home sometimes
You're going to be in big trouble, man.
I am probably in big trouble already, but hey ho. So I used to come home sometimes, and she'd have been in tears uh, because she'd had a tough day, and she had no friends here. We had no family. We had no support, absolutely, and she was basically here because of me. So that put a bit of guilt on me as well. But after the first month or so, and we made some friends, and they were really helpful. But the first week or so, it was a bit quite a bit tough, I think, as it is, I think, with anyone.
I'm so thankful you've shared all these things very very openly, and I think I really really appreciate your vulnerability, because obviously these it's not easy to talk about these things, but you know, if someone's listening to this, it may be helping them, and I think that would go a long way. um
I really hope someone who's listening, and if they've been through it, or if they are going through it, just sort of hang in there. It does get better, and talk to people, talk to someone. If you're feeling something, just talk to it. That my problem was, I didn't know who. There were avenues that I could talk to. I could talk to my superiors. I could talk to my supervisor. I didn't. In Pakistan, you don't talk about these things. You're not. It's your own personal problem, internal. So don't internalize it. If you feel like something's up, if something's bothering you, talk to someone about it. Tweet about it. DM Asad about it. He'll add you to a WhatsApp group. Uh, that will help.
that's how you make friends. That's literally
Yeah,
how we became friends.
yeah, exactly.
But also, as you said, in Pakistan it's different because your family's there. So anything you need, you go to your family first of all. But what do
Of
you do
course.
if that's it? I remember when my son was born. I remember us at the hospital. We're like, oh, this isn't too bad. This is fine. First night, right? It's fine. He cries. You change, etc. You feed the baby, and then you come home. And then I remember my wife and I, we were looking at each other saying, "What do we do now?" So that's very similar. That's exactly how you feel when you move countries and you're without your family, who are a big support, obviously, in our home country.
Before you ask me the next question, the one thing that I think, like to add with this is, in COVID, that was especially brutal is a strong word, because people have been through much worse situations than we have. But isolating at home, if you're unwell, or your partner is unwell, or one of your family members is unwell, is a really scary time. I had a lot of support. My friends were amazing. They dropped off food, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, for example, if so, me and my wife both caught COVID together last earlier this year, and we were very scared for the kids, and we were very scared about, if one of us has to go to the hospital and stay there, so they are going to then be alone, not the kids. So the other partner is going to be with the kids, but then that means I can't really come in to visit again and again, because where do I leave the kids? And I'm unwell myself. So there was a point where we were like, what do we do? And we were sort of looking at options, and we were discussing things like, who should she call if I am, for want of a better word, incapacitated, and those sorts of things. There's those conversations that you really don't want to have with anyone. So, but I think we had a good friends structure here. My workplace was really really supportive. My boss called me every day or
Mm,
texted me every day asking me if I needed anything. Those things matter, and they made a difference, but it was a bit difficult.
definitely. It sounds like it was a difficult time, and you guys pulled through. I was gonna make a joke and say at least you didn't go to Barnard Castle, but I don't think that's gonna go down well. We're gonna move on to the last question. I tell everyone this is my favorite question because it in a way it allows me to sort of learn a lot from people I speak to on this podcast as well. Um, and before we talk about that, I think one of the things that I do want to say is that um, I've been very lucky, as have many other people in the NHS, because it's I like to call it like this melting pot of different cultures and different races, and I'm very lucky to have friends from all over the world, and most of the people I will be bringing on this podcast are people I know, because that's how it works, and you'll get to meet them all very, very soon, and I'm making new friends as well. But I think as I said, one of my favorite questions is, what would you tell yourself if you could go back to the person and speak to them, just like Back to the Future? If you were making the decision to move and you could go back and talk to your past self, what would you tell them?
So I would probably tell them to speak to people already here. Try to make connections before you move, if possible. Try to find some what we call adda, some sort of connection, some sort of base that is reliable enough in case you need extra support. The workplace will support you through everything, but they may or may not know what sort of support you need. I've had people who realized 2 years later that they were not 2 years later, I exaggerate, but a few months later, when they received an email or a letter from Her Majesty that they had the wrong tax code on their payslip, which is very common. But in Pakistan, you never talk about your pay. And over here, no one how do you approach that subject? So if in doubt, if you have no idea what the pay slip means, ask a question. If you've received a letter, ask a question. So I think just make an informed decision. Don't just go by gut feeling, to me, it was like, oh, I've taken the PLAB 1, let's go for PLAB 2. Oh, I've passed PLAB 2, I've now applied for GMC training, a GMC license. Now that the GMC license is here, the automatic thing is just leave when the visa arrives. So yes, it was stepwise, but I didn't think it through to what would I do when I got there? Yes, I have a job, but what happens after that? So those things, I think you need to plan ahead. Other than that, I think just if you work hard, if you're willing to put in the hard work, this country really, really appreciates hard workers. Yes, there are going to be people who are going to discriminate based on your gender or your color, but those things are everywhere. But for the most part, people are very supportive. It's a very inclusive society. The NHS works, like you say, it's a melting pot. It's a melting pot of different ethnicities, and not just ethnicities that have come from the outside. People who have been settled here for hundreds of years have different ethnicities, different dialects, different experiences. So this is a wonderful place to work. Don't be scared about the stories of Brexit and everything. The vast majority of people are going to absolutely love you being here if you are a good person and if you bring good skill and hard work to the department, to the trust that you work in, to the country. I think you'd be appreciated and valued. Is my take on it.
I think that's perfect. Sounds good. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. And if I was actually, what would you tell your wife if you could go back in time? Run. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, probably. This is what it's going to look like. That's the door if you wanted to run in the opposite direction. And I wouldn't even need to finish my sentence and she'd be off. No, she wouldn't.
No, I'm just kidding. Is to get to this point without having the support of a loving family is impossible. And I bear witness to the same fact myself. I think that's it. I think we've actually run too long, but don't worry.
Oh no.
Thank you very much, Osama. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I look forward to having you on for more episodes. We can do some more episodes together.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Take care.
Bye-bye.